Good afternoon. Here we are on the second half of the second day, and I am very excited personally about this panel because it's a lot of the work that we do on a day-to-day basis, and I've hand-selected these folks who are definitely leading the industry in what's going on with customer data, fan behavior analytics, and how they're leveraging technology to better understand our customers in the industry and how we're marketing to them. So, I'm going to start. Who's going to be the first one? Maybe you, Tim, since you missed the call. I want to basically start by asking, we've had so much new data that's come in really in the past 10 years, but specifically the last 5 years, with email marketing, the cookies on websites, market research. How have you used data to better engage your fans? And then, by the way, I want to open it after you speak for the rest of you guys to jump in and ask questions to each other.
Good question. And first I would say, I think on the business side of sports, I think we're at an inflection point to really accelerate growth through the use of data being driven by digital. I think there's two parts to this answer. One of it is executionally, tactically, what are we doing? And the other part of it is, I think, organizationally structural. How is this impacting us? And just to touch base on the organizational structure part, I think the advent of digital is challenging how we organize and structure our companies. Who is overseeing different departments? Who's overseeing digital? Who's overseeing marketing? Who's overseeing ticketing? And I think it's causing all of us, including I think the top people, the CMOs, to really become a digital CMO. And I would say if you're not becoming a digital CMO, you are becoming extinct. There's a huge difference in the 25 to 35-year-old working in the marketing department than the 35 plus. And it's forcing people like myself to really think about how do I become a digital CMO. I think tactically speaking, and you'll hear from these guys about the ability to use the analytics to drive much more efficiency and scale as we use data to score leads, as we use data to predict who will be a potential non-renewal and then allocate resources accordingly.
One of the things that's happened with technology over the years, it's allowed us to be less reliant on mass media advertising, right? So, you never knew what part of your marketing budget wasn't actually delivering for you. Now we've transitioned more to that one-to-one. If you're doing this the right way, you really need to find out who's engaging with your product. How do you engage with how do you engage with them to get them to maybe use your product more? And then who else looks like them? So instead of just doing the mass random shot, mass media advertising, you have an ability now with technology to drill down to that one-on-one relationship. It's a matter of then how do you get those people so that they're in some sort of a marketable database that you can use. Obviously, there's a lot of people watching on TV. There's a lot of people interacting maybe in your venue when you're at a ball game, in our case for baseball. But now you need to be able to find out who they are so you can market to them one-to-one, because the mass media advertising just doesn't work like it used to. And Tim said if you're not a digital CMO, you're extinct. Well, it's 100% right.
Can you guys give me specific examples of how you're actually using the data to do that one-to-one marketing? Charlie's raising his hand.
I guess I'll take a step back and talk about from an overall perspective, from a digital perspective. We use SaaS as a major player with our data integration, and we have a data warehouse, and we use that data warehouse to help and utilize SaaS to for both descriptive analytics and predictive analytics. The descriptive analytics are really helping us, if you will, do our reporting, do our dashboard, and then the predictive is really helping us drive understanding behavior, if you will, and understanding why our customers are going to renew or not renew, understanding how we score leads, et cetera. And then the key for this, and we were talking about this earlier, is making sure with the data, it's one thing to get the data, then it's another to get the data out into the hands of your service reps, what have you, and making sure they utilize that data to be effective. And that's something that is, I think, as we talk about the importance of digital marketing, is making sure that the individuals today can get the data out to the customer, the executives, the service reps, so they can actually make a difference and make an impact on the customers themselves based on what they're hearing.
So give me an example of that one thing that you've done that has had an impact.
Well, the key, one of the things that we've done over the last couple of years, we've actually combined, high tech with low tech. right? So in the ballpark, ideally what you'd like to have happen as any marketer, you want to know everybody that's interacting with your product. I mean, I'm sure all of us would love to know from the team side, every single person that not only bought a ticket, but who's actually using the ticket in your venue, right? So you're only able to capture so much of that via credit card transactions if it's online. If someone pays cash at the window, you may not know. I may not have all the information on a secondary market if someone resold their ticket, or you just gave your tickets away to one of your clients, right? So one of the things we really try to focus on from our standpoint is who's in the ballpark and how do we get your name? So a few years ago, and I know we had talked about this, I think a couple years ago, everybody was doing the text to board, right? So text to polling while you're in the stadium watching a ball game. That's nice, and we got tons of names by doing that, or tons of email addresses and phone numbers. But then you had to ask somebody to opt in, and then you had to ask them to interact with you, and the size of that database just became very small, and we saw very little ROI. So what we did was we said, you know what, high tech is nice, and having people, tweet to our board and all that type of stuff, we still do. But what we did was we went back to something you probably saw a long time ago. There's probably not too many folks who are maybe this old. Some of us may remember, if you went to a carnival and you went up there and you pulled an old-fashioned wheel, right? It's spin and win, baby. You come on up there, you get a chance to spin, but in order to spin to win a prize, you had to give me your name, address, and email. Very simple. We started off originally just by having people fill out a card, etc. So the first year we did it for Pirates games, we generated that year about 120,000 unique names of people in the park. Now that was out of our attendance that year was about 1.6 million, okay? Now last year our attendance was 2.1 million. You start seeing some of those same names. What we wound up getting on average over 1,000 new unique names, those are just uniques, coming up to spin the wheel to win a prize.
Every game.
Every game. So one of the issues that we had, unfortunately or fortunately, was the line started to get so long. We deployed these prize wheels throughout the ballpark, and we started having very long lines to the point where we knew people weren't coming. So we changed it to, it's now a digital prize wheel. You actually get a fast pass card, like a loyalty card. You sign up once, you keep it, you bring it back. We scan it, you're good to go, you can spin the wheel. Now, it allows me then to know how many times Jessica is coming to a game, how often, what prizes do you choose, and we actually added 2 open-ended questions. You can just push before you get to go into who's your favorite player, what do you like to drink when you come to the ballpark, how far do you live, who did you attend with today. Simple things so we can get more information. But that's the crux of it for us. If I could do that for everybody watching on TV as well, it would be great, and we're slowly trying to get there. But the crux of what we're trying to do with all of this with technology is to be able to find a way to be able to one-on-one market to people. And believe it or not, we had to take a step back and do something a little bit more old school in order to be able to market to these folks that I think has really worked for us.
So we're talking about the challenges of getting the data and collecting the data, and I'm gonna give this to you, George, and talk about what are the challenges that you guys have faced, not only with collecting the data, but then more broadly with 32 team websites that you're overseeing, collecting it, and then the discussion on sharing that information. And then I'd also like the folks who work for the teams to provide some perspective on from your leagues, not the NFL, what that's like. And then Rob, I'd like you to share some perspective on that data collection and all the information that we would love to have from ESPN.
Thanks, Jessica. Well, I would first say we're a little different than some of the other teams up here as a league because we only have 8 regular season games. So if you're a Packers fan, you may never go to a Packers game. They're sold out. It's very difficult to get in. We don't have 80 games to choose from. So while we do focus a lot on tickets and the ticket holder, there's also a large number of displaced fans. And I guess if I had to answer a challenge for us has been social media. Why? Because social media is a great way to be very nimble and to experiment with your fan base and to see what interests them and what doesn't. We do a lot of segmenting, even hyper-segmenting overseas with our subscription products. And we did some very early tests this year. We've seen some success. But the challenge to that is now you've moved away from your databases where you know the customers very well and you can slice and dice the data out to other platforms where you don't have as much visibility. So I think one of the mandates for us this year is to implement Omniture Tracking not only across social but mobile, so that from a fan standpoint, we're better able to track what our customers are doing holistically across all our properties.
Do you want to explain to the crowd what Omniture Tracking is?
Omniture is our analytics tool. If you all know what ComScore or Nielsen is, that is a pool. Omniture tracks the specific user. And so in terms of where is the user going on your site, how much time are they spending, how often are they coming back, it's a great tool for Patriots.com, but once you're on Facebook, you tend to lose what those users are doing. So we're now at a point where we're able to implement that across our social properties in a way that we can look at what a user's doing regardless of where they are in the ecosystem.
And then you're able to share that information with the teams?
Yes.
Yeah, look, I think, I'm glad you said the word mobile. I think the reality here is that we're all contending with this notion that there isn't like a mass audience to serve. There's a massive audience of individuals. And thankfully, technology is enabling us a little bit to catch up to that. I mean, you all are walking around with these devices in your pockets that are highly personalized. You have highly personalized experiences. And you're living in a world in which you have a Facebook account, and you have a Twitter account, and you have these entry points into the mobile space where you're already giving a lot of information about yourself, right? And so you don't have the same hang-up that you might have had if we'd asked you 4 years ago, please register, please give us some information. You're doing it left and right, and so it's a behavior that's increasing. And so we're able to get our heads around, all right, these are the kinds of things we need to be building or thinking about, or this is the speed with which we have to deliver information, because you're telling us through your behavior in this space with these devices what your expectations are. We know the top 100 teams in terms of fan avidity, where people spend the most time on our site or on our mobile space. We know that mobile is got a bigger audience than the online ESPN existence on football Sundays or football Saturdays. We just know that. We know what your expectation is of how quickly a piece of video should show up after a play happens. We know you consume video differently in the mobile space than you do online. We know, I'll give you an example. In the last 9 weeks, 3 video clips have made both the top 10 online consumed videos and the top 10 mobile.
Only 3.
Only 3.
Wow.
Rex Ryan's tattoo, real or fake, Manti Te'o's girlfriend, and Terrence Ross winning the dunk contest. Otherwise, those lists don't look anything alike.
That's interesting.
We know that tells us in the mobile space, you're consuming video irrespective of storyline. It's just got to be fast and interesting, and that changes our product creation. So these are the kinds of things that you're telling us through your behavior, and we're just scratching the surface. And by the way, that data is also really important for storytelling. That's why when our guys created the Heat Index to talk about the Miami Heat, well, it was probably a good idea. They were going to be kind of good, but it resulted in a huge portion of our overall NBA page views. And you could see that happening because before we created the Heat Index, those stories were popping up left and right, online and in mobile, way at the top of our list. So there's this active process that you are engaging in every day through your behavior that's informing what we should be and what we should do.
Now, Rep, can I just add?
Sure.
Are you guys actually sending out specific content to specific people? So if we all opened up our ESPN mobile site right now, the 5 of us would have different content.
To an extent. For example, if you go onto ESPN.com and you register and tells you your favorite teams are, your favorite sports, you'll get a different navigation bar. Mm-hmm. The scoreboard will look different, so your team's games will be highlighted in yellow. We have, through the mobile experience and online, a highly customizable experience where you can get alerts for sports or for your teams. You can get an alert at the 3rd inning score, 6th inning score, 9th inning score changes in the NFL. We can deliver all that content to you kind of on demand. Mm-hmm. Last month, 2.2 million users received 2.2 billion alerts because, that is the way people kind of live and expect things to happen. And we call it active publishing because realistically, we create a great website, mobile website, app, and hope people show up. But that's not really the way the world is working. social referral or search engine optimization. People are finding stuff their own way, so you got to create a million doorways. But you also have to actively publish. So we create these alerts to make sure you want something, it's yours. We're going to, hey, this just happened, it's yours. And in that regard, yeah, people are having very individual experiences. I am a fan of Washington area sports. Sometimes that's a point of pain. And nevertheless, I choose to have that experience. And you know, we created something called the Sportscenter Feed to make it easier to consume all the content we have in the digital space by raising the visibility of the value proposition around personalizing. You get it much easier, much more customized, hopefully much more gratifying experience based on what you tell us.
So I think, you know, what I'm hearing here is that you guys are using, in particular, customer information, analytics in particular, about how your fans are consuming, in this case, mobile, to make some changes about how you're delivering the product.
Correct.
And I think that it's really important. It's something that we are very much thinking about with respect to mobile websites and even email marketing and having mobile design. So I want to just press on this a little bit more, not the mobile so much, but how you're using customer analytics to make changes to your overall business and your marketing strategy, and that you can take that any angle you want.
I get to go first.
I guess so. I mean, he pointed at
I was
you.
going to say, Charlie pointed over to me, so I
I
guess
know.
I have to go.
He didn't it's like he raised his hand
Thanks,
and then
Charlie.
said
It's
no.
like I went like this, or I drew the stretch jaw.
Lou likes to talk, so you know. It's good.
What a surprise. Actually, I had a couple of things just based on what he had said a minute ago. Was, you know, the heat index is really great. Charlie's waiting for the Magic Act for you to come up with for his Orlando
absolutely.
Magic, and maybe the Pirates Treasure for the Pirates. So hopefully we can get those up there.
I'll check
pretty
the
soon.
standings, and if it matches up, you're in.
Oh, the standings.
Not so much.
All right. What was the question?
How are you using customer analytics? Trying to take back control of this
Yep,
panel.
yep.
How are you using customer analytics and data to change your marketing strategy and your overall business
You bet.
operations?
I mean, there's a lot of different things that you've done, but I think there's two major buckets that we look at from the Pirates' perspective. Number one is really understanding more about our fans, so our current ticket buyers, and specifically like your season ticket holders. So trying to drill down into using analytics to find out, and Charlie and I had talked about this earlier, we have very similar setups, is find out exactly who is at risk on your season ticket holder account base, which ones are the most likely to not renew based on a variety. We have a very intricate scoring model that we put together so that you can see based on how many games they come to, or actually how many games they've missed, how often they buy food, how often they answer surveys, you know, et cetera, how often are they selling their tickets on the secondary market, to figure out, okay, who's at risk here? And really focus on those accounts that are at risk early. You know, when the season ends in baseball and it's October or November, to then start to look at that data, you've lost that person. So we back all of this stuff up through middle of the season. We'll know starting in June and July who our at-risk accounts are for that year so far, so that I could sit down with Charlie in his seats at a game, or a customer service rep could start making, you know, reaching out to that person to figure out what can we do to help resolve Charlie's issue so that he could stay on board. Conversely, we'll also know that Rob's going to renew no matter what. So obviously we still stay in touch with Rob. We want to make sure we're still touching him and doing what we can, but we're not going to put as much effort into Rob because we know he's 99.5% going to renew. We're not ignoring him, but we need to really focus on the place where we're going to be able to salvage some accounts, and then obviously there's some accounts that you feel that are never going to come back based on their scoring model. You still give them the same effort, but you really find that fence sitter group where you really want to try to drive your renewal rate up, because obviously the season ticket holders are the lifeblood of our business. Secondarily for us, we've also put a lot of money and time into trying to figure out what of our marketing is actually working. You know, so we've tried to do as much as we can with specific URLs and TV spots, using different 800 numbers a few years ago, to ads online and TV spots, print, and literally everything would have a different call to action to see. If I put a print ad out there in our local newspaper with a specific offer, and it all just went to pirates.com, how would I really know if it worked versus people just going to pirates.com because they wanted to or they saw a TV ad? So we got very specific about trying to track where we were spending our money, and then we started to build some models behind it, right? So how quickly, once we run an ad, do we start to see a spike in sales? When do we run an ad? Does it actually start to have a biggest impact for a game? So we can start optimizing, saying we're going to spend X amount of our money in this channel 6 days before this weekend series, and it's going to go in these channels targeted to these people, and here's the message. So that way you can really focus in. If I know I'm going to spend X amount of money, I can really narrow in on what we think gives us the best chance to drive attendance and get a return for that marketing dollar.
No, and I think it's interesting to hear that you're using your more traditional direct marketing and those strategies, which makes sense. I guess my other question to the rest of you guys, so we've heard a lot about regression models for ticketing. What other types of regression models are you potentially using to make some of those strategic decisions?
Well, we actually applied some very strategic modeling to our marketing buy. We've actually just started doing it on our corporate sponsorship end as well to try to figure out and really hone in on what's the right approach, what's the right offers for some of our current partners, and then hopefully potential future partners. You know, it also led us to realize that we needed to add staff. Now, I had been suggesting that along the way, but when you actually can come up with a compelling, set of data to show you why, because you were leaving so much untapped resources out there, to add on one more salesperson and 2 more service people made a huge difference in where we're going to grow our sponsorship dollars this year. So we've used it in both areas.
Gentlemen, how else you're using regression models to
Yeah.
drive marketing?
Well, I guess what I would say is maybe not so much what we're using, but I think what can come next is, I sat here 6-7 years ago, well, I guess it was at MIT, and the question was, what do you see happening in the future? And I said, well, I think it'd be really cool with advertising if you could use predictive analytics so that you didn't just place your ads for 6 months or a year and then kind of look, in the rearview mirror and see what happened. And I said it'd be really great if you could have advertising that learns and then literally predicts the next day what your media mix should be the next day. So I don't know if anybody's seen the March edition of the Harvard Business Review, but here's rocket fuel, and it says advertising that learns. So I guess
So you should have invested in that.
So I should have invested, or that guy was sitting in this conference 6 years ago, I guess, huh? But I think that's a real opportunity for us, is instead of just placing advertising and kind of seeing what happens, is, can we be much more sophisticated with it and using, like gaming theory. And if your competitor drops prices by 10%, what happens to your sales? If X happens, and just setting up a series of variables and being able to run these gaming models and determine what at the end of the day is going to happen to your sales. I think that's a huge opportunity for in the sports leagues.
And just to add to that, one thing we have to do is really test the audience, test the product, and test the offer. And we're constantly trying from a digital platform to do that, so then we can then figure out what's the best offer and the best way to have the market penetration. And that's something that I think we all have to get better at as we talk about being digital marketing experts, if you will.
I think, George, you probably are going to have the best.
Yeah, I would, just getting away from ticketing and talking about what my NFL.com colleagues are doing, we have a product called International Game Pass. And if you're familiar with Sunday Ticket, this is Sunday Ticket for the rest of the world. That's a huge growth opportunity for us. So they've been doing a lot of regression analysis, largely on social, to reach that audience, different messaging. We're in different languages. So there's a way you message a Jets fan in Germany that's very different than the way you message a Jets fan in the United States or in England. And so we're doing a lot of experimentation and regression analysis around that so that we can grow that market abroad.
Not that I want to ask about Jets fans, but what do the ones in Germany want that's different than the other folks?
Well, I think part of it's, you learn some things, which is, number one, you have to put that message out like you would here. Like if the optimal time is 9 in the morning for a message in New York, you're not going to send it in the middle of the night. There's also language barriers, so we work to put it in their language, say, if they're true German fans. And so it's just the art of tweaking those messages, seeing what's working and what's not.
So we touched a little bit on social media at the beginning, and look, it's challenging for all of us, I know, and we're trying to solve it, and there'll be a panel on that later today. But if you guys could provide some perspective as marketers, how are you analyzing the value of social media to your core business, and where are you choosing to make your investments around it?
Can I just jump in before we go to that?
Of course.
I got to say that Social media is a very strange mix.
Yes, it is.
And it holds out huge promise because of its scale. And I find that we're all racing to the scale without really kind of fully understanding what's in there. You know, where it is very, it's a bunch of very personal experiences. So we have to be really careful as we tread into this space. My point of view, social media is very powerful content. Can be very powerful content if it's pure and encouraged, and you know, look, there's this night of the Super Bowl, right? Beyonce ruled the world for, well, she still does, but for 15 minutes. And then the lack of electricity ruled the world for 25 minutes. And the conversation that was happening in real time there was a universal, hugely communal conversation. The minute that ended, the conversation fragmented into a zillion different places. And so to say you can walk into that environment with a strategy is kind of ambitious, you know, and I think where we spend a lot of our energy is trying to figure out how we let our fans engage with us in a way that is authentic and that is personal. Personalization for us is a central thought theme of all the things we're building going forward, because again, everybody here's got a phone with fingerprints on it. You wouldn't share your phone with anybody else, and you wouldn't take anybody else's phone because they got fingerprints on it. It's that personal. And so as we talk about social, when we talk about our strategies, we're really sort of still getting into this and trying to understand exactly how we should be touching you, and also being careful that we're not broadcasting, because we are not the center of that content conversation. You are. And it's as different and disparate as the people in the room.
Well, and to add to that, I mean, teams have to be so careful not to try to artificially drive it. And, you know, we've done studies, and Lou and I were talking about it, and we need to utilize it as teams to understand, you know, what the sentiment is out there of your team or situation. And I think we were talking about text mining and how, you know, working with SaaS and potentially using text mining to help us, you know, instead of having to comb through reports or comb through this, you know, you can do it and it's automated for you, so we can see what the key buzzwords and see what's going on. And I don't know if you want to talk about your text mining stuff and then just social and how you're using it, because I think we have to be careful, because if you push it artificially,
Right.
it's not authentic, and that's what the fans crave.
Correct.
To your
You'll lose people, obviously, because as soon as you start trying to market too aggressively to somebody on social media, you're done. And that word will spread 10 times as fast. So, you know, from our standpoint, one thing that we got behind, and we're still new at this as well, you know, my first instinct to everything is try to sell somebody something, right? So here's another channel, great, let's sell them something. So we've kind of backed off that approach, just kind of take a little bit slower at this one. But about 3 months ago, there was a contest through Major League Baseball to vote on who would be on the cover of MLB The Show this year, right? And there was 7 contestants, with our star player Andrew McCutchen being one of them. And he was up against CeCe Sabathia, Buster Posey, and all these guys on, you know, Kemp, all these guys in big markets on playoff caliber teams with huge fan bases, huge Twitter followers, large Facebook followers. I actually sat down with Andrew McCutchen's marketing agent, and because I knew this is very important to Andrew, I said, how aggressive do you want us to be? He said, well, Andrew would love to win this thing, and he's all in. I said, because we'll get behind it, and we'll drop everything we're doing to push this if you think it's right. And he wound up winning. I mean, and Andrew was up at 2 in the morning tweeting stuff out himself, which goes to show you the power of social media. A guy from the smallest market in that case, a non-playoff contender, a relatively newcomer to the scene in baseball, all of a sudden beat out all these other, you know, big hitters, which obviously CeCe Sabathia accused us of kind of rigging, I guess, the voting, which we didn't. We didn't,
Cheater.
I promise. He just couldn't figure out how that could happen. It's the power of social media. People got behind a cause, Andrew McCutchen being on the cover of a game, which really led them to react. Now, if we did the same thing and said, buy tickets for tomorrow's game, I don't think that's going to work so well.
Okay, well, that's interesting. And I think, you know, we've talked about mobile a little bit, social a little bit, and a little bit about email marketing, but not that much. I'd like to get a better understanding about how you're taking advantage of technology to help grow your business. Thoughts here? No one's using technology?
No. We have rotary phones, and you
No,
know,
again, look, from our perspective, from all of our perspective, I see there's folks in the audience who are working very hard on incredible products that are actually bringing what your digital experience is closer to what your linear television experience is, and the ability to have more control over what you're seeing on a screen. And you got people in this room who are pulling the screens together so that regardless of how small you start, there's some sort of common functionality. Along those lines, we think about content and when we deliver it and how we deliver it, and again, what sort of clips should appear over on this device and what sort of highlights should appear on this device constantly. So we find, especially with my content team, that every content conversation is simultaneously a product conversation, and vice versa. So, when we decide to do something like, update ScoreCenter or revamp this or create the SportsCenter feed or sit down and think about the future of SportsCenter and how it's evolving, it's all about understanding the technology that you're using and your expectations for how quickly technology will change. I think that's why it's we're stultified by the question, because technology is changing so quickly. Like I have an iPad mini now, right? I look at my other iPad, the thing looks like it weighs 50 pounds, right? And it didn't exist, 3 months ago, my iPad was like the sweetest.
the greatest thing ever, right?
So, who knows what the technology question is? Like, Reebok's out there, they get that thing. I got a Nike band.
Yes.
I don't even know what I'm doing. So, but so then when you start thinking about, well, how are you using it? Well, we're playing with the stuff now. We're furiously trying to anticipate what's coming next. And the only way you can, the way we think about technology is how can we just make it easier? What's going to make it easier?
Right.
And then, how do we make sure that when it gets easy, the content is excellent? So, it's a difficult question to answer because, tomorrow's coming very quickly all the time.
Well, and what we did at the Amway Center, so we wanted to be cutting edge in terms of the technology when we opened the building in 2010. And one of the things we learned early on was our Wi-Fi capabilities. We put a tremendous amount of investment on the front end to our Wi-Fi. But we just spent, in this off-season, $700,000 to upgrade the Wi-Fi even more. We don't know yet, and I think we all struggle with it. You hear this at the NBA Tech Summit and all these different technology summits. How do you monetize mobile? How do you monetize an arena? No one has that magic bullet yet, and I think we're waiting to see the technology come to us to where we can do it, because we can have a lot of cool factors, and we can have a mobile app that allows you to see replays from different angles, but are you really going to utilize it, and then how do you make money from doing that? And I think that's the struggle that the teams at least are having, and I don't speak for Lou or you guys, but for us, we want to be ready when the technology's there, and you're starting to see small drips of it, but we're not quite there yet. But you want to make sure you have the infrastructure to be able to handle it when it does get there, and that's what we've been focused on. Right. And we've been testing different things.
We've been in the same boat. We're fortunate enough, with baseball, you have the MLB at bat, application, which we really would like people to use in park because everybody's on their phone anyway.
Yeah.
When you're sitting there, everybody's on the phone the whole time on Twitter, Facebook, whatever. You see a lot more people using at bat or at ballpark. Two phenomenal apps. It's great stuff, no offense. ESPN, they're on ESPN too, my bad. But what happens is when you have 38,000 people in a ballpark, which is our capacity, all of a sudden, our Wi-Fi doesn't exist in ballpark at the moment, so people are jamming up cell towers. Then now people are frustrated. You've got this great piece of technology with incredible capabilities. I can't get it to work. So my youngest daughter is 16 years old, and she sits next to me, is always hitting me. Like, when are you going to get this fixed? I can't get, I'm jammed up. So, no offense to the Celtics if they're in the room here, but I was at the Celtics game last night, and my oldest daughter did the same thing. She's like, I'm trying to post this picture I just took of us on Facebook. I just can't get through. Like, well, that's what happens. So technology is great, but if you don't have that infrastructure, that pipeline, and systems built to really take care of it. You just opened your building 18 months ago?
Yeah,
or
2010, and then just spent it this offseason.
Right. You have to do that, because if not, how I'm going to receive my content, I'm actually going to be frustrated now and potentially lose a fan from coming to the game, because you could sit at home and watch it on TV with my second screen or third screen or fourth screen on my own Wi-Fi, and I'm going to be great. So we have to be very careful to make sure that we understand how the technology impacts a fan, and make sure that we have the right structure built in place to make sure that we provide it the right way.
So two things. The first is, it's Under Armour, not Reebok. I want to edit myself. Second of all, this is ultimately about audience expectation, and that's where the technology piece is really frustrating, because audience expectation is always changing, always changing. And, you know, you try something once and it's not working, you're not coming back.
Right.
You got so many options. Average person spending time with only 1.8 apps. You know, that first time you go to an app and it's just not the experience you want, there's a little X button and you're out. So the stakes are pretty high. I mean, you're especially some of the generation I see in here, your patience level is low. So, you know, that's what we try to be smart about. And, you know, it's a lot of work.
I think, George, I'll let you provide perspective on what the NFL is doing on the in-arena experience or in-stadium experience.
Yeah, and I'll maybe take a bit of a different approach than baseball. I want to tell a quick story. I was at a Dodgers game last year, and with a bunch of family, and I thought I should download the app while I'm in stadium, and I'm sitting next to a guy, and we got engrossed in it, and the score was 0-0, and I turned to my wife, I said, wait, is the scoreboard wrong? It says 1-0. She says, no, you missed it. We're all standing screaming, and you're sitting there with this guy on your phone. You guys never looked up. So I think, you know, at baseball it works well. Football's a little bit of a faster moving sport. And so to me, as we look at the in-stadium experience, while highlights and all that is very important, I think there's a lot of utility that's, you know, you talked about the Mini and why it's so great, but what's so great about your phone is that eventually it tells you the best route to the game. It tells you which gate to go in, tells you where to park, tells you where to get concessions, and it becomes much more of a utility device that makes that game day experience more pleasant. The other things we can do is we have a game rewind product. So perhaps if you're a season ticket holder, you have that app, you get home and guess what? Anything you missed is available on your phone or your tablet. So,
Or perhaps while you're driving home, sitting in
yeah,
traffic.
or while you're or maybe in the passenger seat. So I think we're looking at those things. We're also, I'll tell you quickly about a product that we launched last year that we're really excited about is fantasy football is big for us. So we're going to launch a fantasy product by club that is only available to season ticket holders. So, you know, part of fantasy is trash talking. If these guys are sitting in my row and we're in a fantasy team together because we sit in row 25, what better way to trash talk than right there, you know, during the game while you've got your fantasy stats. So we did that with the Bills last year. It was very successful, and we're going to roll that out to 32 clubs. So I'm sort of getting beyond the, you know, the technology app because we have the same problems. We have the same Wi-Fi problems that you all do. We can't. I go to a lot of games and I'm rarely able to get the video because we just don't have the bandwidth in stadium.
And one thing that we got to think about too is we talked about scale earlier, and the issue is if you're just trying to do it in the stadiums or the arenas, the scale that could be had outside of those areas is much greater, and we've got to figure out how to tap into that data point so that we can monetize it more than just that special experience with 18,000 or 65,000. I think that's a challenge that we have, and everybody wants it to be cool and be in arena or in stadium, but we also got to figure out how do we get into the homes and how do we access that data and use that to then remarket and retarget. And I think that's where you can monetize it.
On this concept, though, of the stadium and Wi-Fi, I mean, isn't this just a cost of doing business? I mean, I feel like this argument has been going on, and so many stadiums and arenas are still not doing it just yet. But to me, it's a matter of, it's almost like we should be tired of this discussion. It should be in, it should be done, right? Why not? I mean, why are we delaying?
I don't think the technology.
We're billion-dollar businesses, and we're sitting here saying, well, geez, it costs, you know, X millions of dollars to put in Wi-Fi, and who should we do it?
To me, it's like building another lane on the freeway in Los Angeles. By the time you build that other lane, there's more people there. And so to me, the technology has to leapfrog, and we need to figure out a different way, because just spending, you know, another $8 million.
And I agree, right? Yeah. Is Wi-Fi here, or is Wi-Fi going to change in X number of years?
Yeah.
But then this discussion happens for another 3 years, and we still haven't done anything. We're still talking about it. And it's like, guys, come on. At a certain point, I think we just have to do it and be accepting of the fact that it may change, and we will have to change with it. But we can't have the same discussion then of saying, oh, the at-home experience is so good. What do we do about the in-home or in-stadium experience? right? I also think, though, that the in-stadium experience, we talk about, hey, there's Red Zone and all these wonderful products that we're offering at home. I don't think that the answer is simply saying, let's create this big wall over here, and that wall is going to be the red zone, or is going to be the stats board. I mean, I think that helps, but I don't think that in and of itself leapfrogs what you're going to be able to do at home. I mean, and that's, infrastructure in the stadium is not nearly as nimble as what's happening over on the TV side, and the stuff that's going to be coming out in the TV land. And if you look forward, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years, the stuff that's going to be happening there, that's going to leapfrog putting up a big wall over here that has red zone on it, right? So we're always going to be in this catch-up mode unless we think about it completely different.
Well, I mean, I think the other thing just to point out, and it was actually something that was talked about during some of the panels yesterday, which is that, yes, people want to be able to have some of the conveniences that they have at home, but they're also seeing a live event. Right. And having that camaraderie, and that's obviously what sports is really all about, and I think that's a good point. Although I will say that the Wi-Fi experience and having all those capabilities it's definitely coming, and I think really important to address.
Can I be moderator for just ask one question?
Yeah.
Because
it's so great when I don't have to work.
Based on what Tim's saying, has anyone thought about gamification and rewards? Because I think that it's been ahead of its time for years, and as you think about, again, ways to get fans in the stadium. I was in a panel yesterday on season ticket holders, and it's how do you add value to that person that's coming to your games and keep them coming to the games so that they don't say, I can go on StubHub and I can buy 20 games, the 20 games I want to go to. I don't need to be a season ticket holder. Has anyone thought about gamification, rewards, for coming to the games? And
yeah, I mean, we've done it two ways. One, when we did the arena design, to compete with that television at home, if you will, and that experience, we created these experiential areas, and with bars, clubs, et cetera. We've got all this different variety at Amway Center. The only negative that has is we don't have a lot of people in our seats during the games. They're out enjoying these amenities, which is great. They're spending per caps. Our basketball ops team doesn't like it because no one's in the seats, but that's a good way. But we're also partnering with our partners at Fox in a social rewards program. So, if you come to a Magic game and get a picture in front of the gentleman Jack Terrace, you get points to win a meet and greet with a player. And those types of experience and those types of things, we've got to get to provide that different opportunity, that unique opportunity to have that fan follow that particular thing. And then you can drive it back and you can monetize that. You can sell that. And that's what we're doing in partnership with Fox, and we've just kind of launched that this season. And I think you'll see more of that. Some other teams are launching that as we speak. So that's at least from our perspective. I don't know about you guys.
So we're looking to do the same thing. It's just something we're into talking stages right now, but we realize that's kind of the way to go, different way to interact with people. Also, you can customize, these rewards programs or loyalty programs to that person specifically, so that if, based on however you fill out your profile, if I know that you like to drink Pepsi, maybe I can customize an offer to you, or I can tier your rewards based on what you personally like. It isn't anything new, quite honestly. It's just the technology's made it a lot easier. Sure. I think back in 1999, I was with the Florida Marlins, and we rolled out a rewards program in stadium with a company called AIM Technologies. I see you nodding, you're probably familiar with it. It was the same concept. You had a card, you got everybody signed up. Every time you came to a game, you got to swipe, It was a little bit more cumbersome because you had to go to a kiosk and you had to go find that kiosk and swipe versus I'm on my phone, I'm here, QR code, whatever, NFC, whatever I got to do, I'm good. You know what I mean? I just think it's a matter of what's the right business model to make that worth it. If you're doing it for a season ticket holder reward program, that's one angle. If you're going to do it to try to move generate some sponsor revenue, get some sponsor throughput, that's another model. It's just a matter of trying to find that right model that works for you.
So I have a couple questions from the audience that have come in. So we'll start with this one. Brands, I'm assuming this means sponsors, say that they need to get more out of marketing than awareness. How are deal structures changing away from impression metrics, if they are?
I mean, I could give you I talked earlier about our prize wheel, okay? So for the first few years, the prizes were tickets to a soft game or slow game that season, leftover promo items, some concession discounts, stuff like that, with the long-term goal of having that all replaced by sponsor dollars, right? So sponsor offers. And we've actually brought 2 new sponsors to the table this year, specifically because they want to have their traffic driving coupons driving fans back to their retail locations. So I think that's just one example of just taking something simple like that and saying, okay, now when I spin and I win and Rob wins, oh, I got XYZ ice cream coupon. There's one available in the ballpark, but there's also one available by your home. You could stop in and redeem that coupon. So again, it's the sponsors, that's what we hear every day from probably almost every sponsor, is how are we going to drive more business for them? Not really that worried about impressions so much. There are some that really want to buy the media value, but really it's about how do you give me an ROI? I've got to justify my spend here. That's just one simple way that we've done it on top of some others that I'll let others talk about.
I mean, we have a whole activation department, and we actually segmented our corporate partnerships area into two areas, new sales and activation. And the activation is so key, whether you're doing local promotions, it's driving that ROI to the consumers. We had some people come down and benchmark our analytics team, and I won't mention the other teams, but they were like, why would you want to share that data with your sponsors? And the argument is why wouldn't you?
Right.
Because if you don't drive that ROI long term, they're not going to come back. Correct. And you may be able to have the smoke and mirrors for a couple years if you're really good, but over time, you've got to drive that ROI back to the sponsor, and that comes through market activation. And I think teams that are just doing the impressions and the signs, those days are over.
Mm-hmm. Rob, you want to provide some perspective from the media buys that are going on?
Well, I think the way it generally works is we try to be proactive in the marketplace in talking about where audiences are and what they're doing and what they're likely to engage with. And in some cases, it does turn into stunts like social media platform gamification and things where we actually know there's real activity and interaction. There's a lot of learning, you know. I think, you know, the marketplace comes to ESPN because we have high quality content and we have a great relationship with our audience because we try to serve our fans at all times. So that's a good place to start. Mm-hmm. And then it gets down to, you know, what are the things that we know are complementary experiences from a content and then marketer's position that still gives our audience a great experience. And in some cases, you know, we've actually created a group that's actually proactive in creating creative, things that somebody would say, yeah, that actually looks like a really cool use of space on your homepage. Our homepage is precious to us, and it does a very nice business, but it's because of active participation between content folks and folks in sales and marketing and talking about what's appropriate for you. Because the minute we start sort of just washing over you with some sort of advertising experience, the minute you say, I just want to check the score, I'm out. And you know, I think because things become buzzwords, like, you know, when I first got this job, digital was the buzzword in the marketplace. Now social is the buzzword in the marketplace, and it'll be, you know, wearable watch in 3 years. And so, you know, you kind of have to manage some of that and just make it be about the audience, make it be consistent for the audience. The other thing we've been doing is we work very closely with television to have a similar kind of conversation in the marketplace so that it's a consistent experience, whether you're watching Sportscenter or watching a game or coming to a digital product. We want to make sure that you are served well.
So this is an interesting question. It's how do you leverage data to provide the customized fan experience at scale? So this, I mean, I think it gets into the technology and perhaps automation. Maybe you guys could provide some perspective on that.
I think Robbie Allen talked a little bit about automated insights and what they're trying to offer in terms of things like personalized fantasy reports. And there's some of that happening out there in the world. You know, look, I love our storytelling. When I come to the site every day and check out our metrics, you know, 45 out of the top 50 pages consumed are scoreboards. So, you know, we know that we have to have an excellent scoreboard, excellent live game cast experience. We got to be great in terms of in-game conversation with our writers and the audience, because we know that's where the numbers kind of stack up through the course of the evening. You know, we know pretty much what the traffic is going to be like. We have a product, I think John Walsh might have talked about it, Newsbeat, which allows me to put an overlay on ESPN.com and see which stories are being most trafficked at any time, or the ones that are sort of surprises. It also allows me to see roughly at what point scrolling down a page readers stop reading stories, which drives us to think about how we edit stories, how we should design story pages so that you're encouraged to continue reading. So, you know, look, when I was in newspapers, we got our metrics once a year. When I went to television, we got our metrics every 15 minutes. In our space, it's every second. Every second we can tell what's happening, what's going on. There's some Fridays about 5:30, I look at the numbers on the site, and like 60% of the people in ESPN digital media space are reading Bill Simmons, you know? And I call up Bill, and I'm like, Bill, you're at 60%. He's like, what? No way. So we know at all times like what that sort of traffic experience is, and that's why we've come to get some knowledge about where we post, how we post, what our core products need to be, and how consistent they have to be. And even now, we're still saying they can be easier for people to use. Your point, watch ESPN. We got to get people to use it because it's a fantastic product, but it's got to be easier for people to use. So, you know, I mean, that's how we live all the time.
Yeah, personalization is key. I mean, I think that's going to be the key to the question is, as we direct market people, you know, they will, you know, how you go about that personalization, you know, and I think, you know, whether it's campaign offers or segmented campaigns, I mean, we have to do a better job as an industry. I think we were talking about this earlier, is we've got to get better at how we customize the message to what they want. I think we spend, you know, the days of sending these mass emails are over, and we really got to get back to, you know, hyper-targeting what they want and marketing to what they want and then retargeting to what they want. And I think as teams especially, we need to start spending the resources in things like automation, you know, so that, you know, you go to a microsite, we learn about you, you know, you type in your favorite player, that on their birthday, the favorite player is sending a personalized card. We got to get to that point where that fan engagement's there. And I think it's going to take a little investment. We talked about the infrastructure earlier that the teams may not have, but I think from an automation perspective, that's going to be that personalization, which really is at scale because you're able to personalize it, but you're doing it based on the data that you're receiving. And I think that's important.
One thing for the automation, because I do think automation will drive growth, is that in order to get there, though, right now the way that we operate is still fairly much on a demand side. You know, we pull information when we need a report. So we walk down to the web person, hey, give me your analytics here. We walk down to this person, give me your analytics around e-commerce. So I do think there's an opportunity. There's companies that do this now, where that all this can come together through software, and it can be integrated as one. I know you guys will have some problems with that in baseball, but there is an opportunity to integrate this. And when you have this integrated, it's no longer, you know, pulling data or demanding data, but rather the data is being pushed out to you. You can obviously set the alerts or whatever, however you want, but it'll alert you to say, you know, a person is on your website that looks like this, serve them up this content. And that's all automated. And so I think as an industry, on the team side particularly, we need to get to that point because we're not there yet. And that's going to hold us back until we get there.
So I want to ask this question. What one piece of customer information do you wish you were able to get? Or are you trying to be able to get?
You know, the one thing I recently saw this company, let me back up. So a couple years ago at the Eagles and actually at the Capitals, we had done a season ticket holder advisory board, an advisory panel, whatever you want to call it. It's 35 people, and they're very much engaged with the organization. They come in about 12 times a year. We ask them a lot of questions. They give us a lot of solutions. So it's not just a focus group, but they really help act as an extension of our marketing department. But it's tough to scale that. So it's great to do, but it's tough to scale. And if you think about how could you scale that and create kind of online advocacy, that would be pretty powerful. And so if you believe in word of mouth marketing, which I do, I think an online advocacy program or software could be very powerful. So there are companies now doing this. And so to me, that the data that I really want is what's happening in the online space, in all those blogs, and what people are saying about the product. And that's where I want to influence. And I can't do that from a scale standpoint. I can't do that with just the resources that I have sitting, you know, in a marketing department. And that's why I think this software allows it to be automated and then in scale can make tremendous impact.
Although I do have a suggestion. It can be humbling, though. You get TweetDeck, you set up a Twitter search for whatever you're looking for, and just watch the real-time. I got one set on ESPN, and there's some days where it's a joy, and then some days where it's like a, you know. But you can always get a pulse all day long as people are in the conversation all day long.
I think, from our perspective, again, I mentioned this earlier, is we have a good sense when you get into the building based on our ticket scanning, all the information, all the technology we have in the building. But it's when you leave the building, how can we start to learn more about you? And I think we as teams have to get a better grasp on what that is so we can market to them. Whether it's our game broadcast, whether it's, social, whether it's, online. And I think we're trying to find that right now. But I think in arena, we're doing a decent job. Outside the building, not so much. And that would be the core data that as we do the deeper customer dive and get that CRM profile a little more robust, that's how I would go about it.
Yeah, for me, it's really more, I guess I whispered to you a second ago, I can pretty much get all the data I want if you give me your name or email address or potentially cell phone number, because you can do anything you want if you have enough money. There are companies out there that can provide us a lot of data on you, or at least come close to giving us a good approximation of what you look like. What I really want to know is, how do I interact with you? I want to be able to have more of an open conversation with you. I don't want to know that you're 42 years old, this, that, where you live. I mean, that's all nice, but I really want to know, how do I interact with you? And for me, it's really more about asking some of those open-ended questions, like, what do you like when you come to a ball game? Where do you like to sit? Tell me about your favorite experience. What was your last experience like at the ballpark? Stuff like that. And Charlie mentioned earlier about this SAS text mining tool. We have, we do a lot of surveying throughout the course of a year, and we'll have, again, it's a small scale, we're just one team, but we'll have one specific question answered 10, 11,000 times in the course of a year. Okay, and it might be something to do with our concession experience, it could be something with your seat experience at the game, it could be what you think of our in-game entertainment, whatever. So what happens is you get to rate it, 1 through 5, whether you like it, not like it, but then there's the open text box. Please put your comments in here. So we sit there, you go through that for days reading all those comments, and I'll get them after every game, and I read them, and sometimes just instinctively say, it looks like we have a problem. Our ice cream lines are too long, or whatever it may be. But really, that's just me reading, that's just my gut. Something that just says, it looks like there's something askew here. What I don't have is, what is the real problem, what's causing that problem, and how is that impacting your decision to maybe come back to another ballgame? Where SAS actually, through their text mining program, which we just signed up for, will be able to do that for us. Obviously, you're going to need some skill to operate the software, but that is extremely valuable to me. So we have the data. I want to figure out, how do I better interact with you as a fan, customer, potential fan, whatever it may be, to help us drive forward and understand what you want so we can help deliver it to you.
George,
Well, I think for us, I would echo what you said about having the data from club to club. I think really what we want to know as we move forward is more about the casual fan, right? And so 49ers, Ravens just went to a Super Bowl. You have a ton of casual fans out there. So we're thinking a lot about, what kind of content do you want to see? We suspect that it's take the helmet off, you want to know more about the players, you want to sort of gain an affinity for those players, but I'd love to know more about what the casual fan, what the teenagers want to see, because I think it goes to social as well. We're not going to determine what the next big social platform is. It's going to be our next generation of fans, just like they determined Facebook and MySpace and anything else. So I'm more interested in learning more about those fans that are on the periphery. Maybe we don't even have their name yet.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think we're starting to ask the set of questions that gets us to that information. Tell us about your fandom. How are we serving you? And that level of feedback, that level of input that people put in, sports fans, they communicate one of two ways. They either cheer or they boo. And you can find out pretty fast. There's if you're right in the middle, that's a problem. So, essentially our job is to explain to me your fandom and how are we serving it. Those things will get us to the right answers.
All right, well, let's give these guys a cheer.